Hello, Yoga Healer podcast listeners. I'm excited to share with you this training that I offered as part of a Master of You workshop. And we have some Master of You workshops coming up. You can go to yogahealer.com/events and see when the next ones are. In any case, we spend a couple days like really diving into what is your noble aim? What is your purpose in the next phase of your life? And how do you step into becoming that so that you can set bigger goals for yourself and hit those bigger goals close to on time? And it's a skill and it's a process. And I found that through years of coaching Master of You, that often people start and they don't know, like they really don't know what is their next noble aim. And that's what this episode is all about. So I hope that you stay tuned and focused, because your life will gain more and more meaning, which will give you more and more, honestly, like the deeper form of happiness comes from a life of meaning. And meaning comes from when you take responsibility to do something, that you take it on yourself to be more than you've been before. And that's what this episode is all about. So enjoy, stay tuned.
My pointers for this have to do with curiosity. And I know most of you, or all of you really, have done enough spiritual practice to understand the value of curiosity versus the sort of being in the known, being in what you already know. An obnoxious way of saying that is like being in your know-it-all self. So and many of you know too, that like I'm the coach, but I'm also a member. Like I'm also very much in the process of all of the stuff that we do here. And in my beginner's mind perspective always serves me a lot more than my mastery mind perspective. And so after I taught this workshop about a month ago in my home here in Alta, we had people fly in from New York and California and drive in from Colorado and Utah and surrounding area. And we did this for 2 days. And then after the workshop, I was in the workshop as the leader. And then afterwards I was like, I kind of just started to do the workshop more on myself. Like, what do I really want? Like, what is really next? What is the next aim? What is the next phase? And what really, really needs to shift? And what we found in the workshop, and I found this since starting to teach Master of You, but I've also started it before, like we even knew Master of You was Master of You when it was just the beginning of the Awake Living course. When we put out this questionnaire that was like, what's your deeper dream? And we had, many of you have heard me tell the story before, but we had like 250 people respond and schedule dream sessions. And so my team did a ton of dream sessions. And they're like, Kate, no one has any idea what their deeper dream is. They're like 5% of people actually that we're talking to actually know what their deeper dream is. Like what they're clear on is that they don't know what their deeper dream is, but that they're not living it. And I was like, well, that's good information. And I was in disbelief too. I was like, bullshit, you guys aren't doing your job, blah, 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 blah. And then I was like, okay, after that reaction, that's usually my go-to reaction. Then I'm like, okay, tell me more. and the tell me more, they're like, well, it seems like there's so much, right? This is like such a good demonstration. There's so much else happening in the now, right? It might be a crying child, but it also just might be our current way of living, our current operating system, our current mindset. It can just be in the way, right? Certain thoughts, relationship patterns or relationships can just be so much in the way that we don't really pause and slow down and say, what's my evolutionary contribution in my life? What is that? Am I aiming true to that? Because if I am, the deeper dream will be much more present in reality. But oftentimes what happens is that we're just in the pattern, right? We're just And it might be a way better pattern than we've ever been in too, right? And that's, that's the sacrificing the great for the good. So if anyone's sacrificing the great for the good, just know like, oh, that's maybe what's up for me in the next 2 days. It's like, it's good. Life's good. It's all good. But then it's the great that will ask for the greater sacrifice. It's the great that'll ask for the greater surrender. It's the great that will bring you more into the now, more into the edge of what's possible, more of the edge of your potentiality. And so anyways, we did these dream sessions, and she's like, and my people were telling me like, this is going to be a process. Like, this isn't going to be like a fast way to find people's deeper dream. Like, this is going to be more of a process. And so I said, okay, well, we better figure out what that process is. So then fast forward to the Alta workshop, there's like, 5 years later. And we do like day one of the Alta workshop, which is a lot about this. It's like what is your noble aim? Like, what is your evolutionary contribution? What is next? What is the next chapter of your life? What is your deeper dream? And we start off and everyone's talking about their deeper dream, and we workshop this for a day. And people come in with certainty in that workshop. People come in not with uncertainty, not with unknown, but like, this is what it is. 24 hours later, that certainty is out the window. And it's shifted. And what's happened is in the process, in the spiraling of talking about it, they've done a revolution in a lot of bullshit or cultural beliefs or ancestral stories or whatever types of patterns that were fixating their aim on something that wasn't as true, have been digested or have been incinerated or have been absorbed, or whatever verb you want to use there, transformed. Probably transformed is a good word. And they're much more clear on setting the right target. Like, the target itself has been verified and refined. Which is important, because like, if you're going to set a target, you want to make sure it's the right one, because you have infinity to choose from. You have the infinite to choose from. Now, being in the position of the creator, right? That's heaven on earth. That's you as the divine. If you've been raised to believe that the divine or the creator is something outside of yourself, it's harder to have bigger aims. And I'm just going to put that out there. Now, many of you have been raised in that, but you've overcome it. And you're like, yeah, I remember that programming. That's what that felt like. But I've upgraded my operating system more into the realm of reality. Right. And then some of us are like somewhere in that. It's not like black or white, but it's in some of those shades of gray. So we might forget our power of choice. We might forget that we ourselves are showing up as the creator, as consciousness, as energy in motion. We have access to the past, the historical past. We have access to universal energy and universal intelligence, and we get to do something. And in fact, if we don't, we will not be satisfied, and we will reach for lower planes of satisfaction, which really kind of show up as addiction, right? Like, we'll fill our stuff with stuff that's less than. And that doesn't feel very good. And it doesn't stretch us. It doesn't bring us to the edge again and again and again and again and again. So in many ways, we don't really have too much of a choice, right? Like, the more we wake up, the more we have to live an awake life. The more we wake up to a life of meaning, the more meaning we have to live into, which means in many ways, the more sacrifice that we have that we have to make. And I think there's a fascinating part of that, to the surrender of that. I'm going to read some stuff by Jordan Peterson, who's Jordan Peterson wrote 12 Rules of Life. He's a psychiatrist by training. He's written over 200 papers for published under University of Toronto and Harvard University in the United States. And he just loves, he loves world wisdom and psychology. So I find he's an interesting reference. So I'm going to read a little bit about him from him, and then from there we'll start to talk to each other more. Find something better to do. Set your sights high, make a plan, figure out who you could be, and see if the obsessive use of a smartphone or whatever fits into that vision of nobility. The more you sacrifice, the more potential you gain. By absorbing that information, which is learning, essentially, you build yourself into a different person, a stronger and more informed person, also a more intact person, a person with more integrity and with more strength and with more direction. And at the same time, you differentiate your map, so you're living more and more in the real world. So as you approach your specific goal, even if it's a culturally conditioned goal, the learning you do along the way transforms you, and it transforms the nature of the goal. Things shine forth. There's a reason for that. And you know that because when you're attending to something you're interested in and you're engaged, that's when you're alive. And that's when life is worthwhile. So it's worthwhile that in those moments, you don't even ask the question about it. The question itself goes away because the meaning that you're united with is so powerful that it can push back the adversity that would otherwise characterize life. Nietzsche said the person who has a why can bear any how. And that's a really useful thing to know because well, we're very vulnerable creatures in our life and catastrophic and terrible things happen. And how can we bear that? And the answer to that is, and always has been, that you have to be in sync with it. It's the resurrection stone. It's up to you. It's a diamond. It's a jewel. The idea, if you follow the thing that manifests itself to you, is interesting. It will lead you through adversity. You'll lead yourself to do things that are difficult, but not beyond your capacity because it's tempered for that. But what will happen is, as you hit yourself against the world, pursuing what you're interested in, you'll tap yourself into alignment. Your molecules, your structure, internal structure, will become non-contradictory, like the internal structure of a jewel, which is something that reflects light, that makes you hard and durable and able to bear the terrible conditions of existence without becoming corrupt. T.S. Eliot said something about this. We shall not cease from exploration, and the end of all our exploring will be to arrive where we started and to know the place for the first time. That's a 5-line summary of the most remarkable elaboration of the nature of the relationship between human consciousness and reality itself. That's to follow what you're interested in, and it'll take over adversity, and then through it, it'll transform you from a citizen into an individual. And then the doors will open again. And at that point, you're strong enough to have your life. And at that point, you're strong enough not to fall prey to pathological belief systems. You need to know that which you want to sacrifice so that you set yourself down a path which interests you. Your nervous system gives you flags, letting you know that which is truly necessary, because without, you just can't live without it. What you are sacrificing to become, that which you want to be most, and what is that you want to become? As you work towards that which you are most interested, the parts of your life that seem dull disappear, and you become so immersed in that thing. You transform yourself into something that has so much experience in the world that you bring yourself into an alignment that is no longer self-contradictory. Imagine who you could be, and then aim single-mindedly at that. How to make yourself more productive and smarter? Get up early in the morning and get to work. All right. So sorry, that was a little hard to read because it's not from writing, it's from speaking. It's from, when people lecture, it comes out a little different.
Hello, podcast listeners. I have a special deal for you. So I have this Change Your Life course, and it's a quick 10-day course that helps you identify what is the next purpose of your life and start to align your purpose. It comes with a little workbook, and I'm going to give it to a few podcast listeners for free. All you have to do is send an email to help, H-E-L-P, help@yogahealer.com. And in the subject line, write Change Your Life. And we will send you the Change Your Life course for free. There's an awesome little ebook that goes with it. It's a little short video course that walks you through exactly who you want to become next, how you want to align your life with purpose, and different strategies for success for immediate implementation. So if you're wanting to pivot, if you're wanting to align, if you're wanting a life of purpose and meaning, take advantage of this. Send an email to help@yogahealer.com and put Change Your Life free in the subject line, and we will get this to you. Now, once you get it, you have 10 days. You only have 10 days to take this course. You can take it on the app. We have a free Yoga Healer app, and you'll get a username and password when you get the course. So you can do it on your phone, on your tablet, or on your computer. Again, just send an email to help@yogahealer.com and put Change Your Life free in the subject line, and we'll get it to you right away. Thanks for being a podcast listener. You guys get all the goods.
That's what we're up to. That's really what we're up to the next 2 days. And obviously, there's a lot of great thinkers on this. What I've tried to do with Master of You is create a really approachable system, bringing a lot of teachings in from Ayurveda and the 5 elements to be able to really access that which gives us a lot of the capacity building to overcome the adversity and to aim true. So our first part of what we need to do is start to talk about and there's 3 words I'm going to use here, and I know they're linked, and I know, or they're not, I guess words, they're phrases. I just know there's different times that they will resonate with different people, and I feel like it's sort of all the same thing. So he's talking about the noble aim. My friend Craig Hamilton talks about your evolutionary contribution. And what I found in trying to help people find center is I use the term deeper dream. And I don't know if it matters, but just write all 3 down. So you have noble aim, evolutionary contribution, and deeper dream. And I've got to say, like, one's not better than the other, as far as I can tell. It's just certain words will resonate and help you find your next becoming more easily. And so honor whatever that is without judgment, because some of you might be like, oh, it's holier to have an evolutionary contribution, so forget the deeper dream. But like, if you're not in touch with your deeper dreams, like, you might just want to start with square one and go there, and that's just fine. If you've been working on, if you're in touch with deeper dreams, but you're not really as oriented to evolutionary contribution, then that might be a really powerful phrase to work with today as we go deeper into just pulling this out of what is it? Okay, before I end my monologue, I want to head on address being and becoming, because this always comes up. And being and becoming, I've thought a lot about, like, what is the symbol? Is it like yin yang? Is it like that? Craig, who I spent a lot of time with Craig Hamilton and Sally Kempton as spiritual teachers, or enlightenment teachers, really, is what they are. They both lean heavier on the being side. And they've done a lot in their lives, so they're totally awake to becoming. So becoming is the evolutionary impulse. Being is the ground of being, or the deep presence. So being is Shiva, becoming is Shakti. There's all sorts of words, but you get it, right? Like you get the nature of non-duality. So being and becoming is that being is always there. The non-dual, why it's not two, is because the being is always there. The being is always the backdrop. Universal consciousness is always available. It's always right here. I was talking with Dr. Claudia Welch. I don't know why this conversation keeps popping into my head, because I was like it being in the ground of being, it builds ojas. And she was like, well, blah, blah, blah. And I was like, how could it not? And the reason I bring that up about builds ojas, or builds the immune essence, and I'm not sure we know, but what we do know is that when people meditate and drop into deeper brainwave states, when people drop into theta or delta brainwave states, but particularly theta, like something else really happens, where they're not anxious, and the parasympathetic nervous system is full on, which means they're in rest and digest mode, which means they're expansive, they're receptive, which means they're not blocking or fighting reality, like a sympathetic nervous system responses where you're actually resisting. The body is in an active resistance to what's happening, which is necessary for survival. Like there's a good reason we're built for survival, right? But it's just different. And so spiritual practice or spiritual intelligence is developed more and more, where we can overcome this adversity that Jordan Peterson's talking about there, from a parasympathetic nervous system response, where it doesn't burn us out. It doesn't blow the sockets. And so what happens when we start to talk about deeper dream or evolutionary contribution or noble aim is, if you're exhausted, if you're depleted from your last noble aim, it can be really hard to dream big for a reason, right? Like it's at that point, the deeper dream to me is spiritual growth. It's got to be that, because there has to develop a deeper relationship with theta brainwave states, with the parasympathetic nervous system, with rejuvenation as a daily I don't like the word habit or routine. I'm going to go with ritual here, as a daily ritual. And that's the deeper dream. Because if that can happen, there's more capacity. And if that like lesson can be learned, so to speak, at the next level of learning it, then what'll happen when that lesson is learned is evolutionary contribution will then go back outward. The pulsation of the spanda will go from directing inward to being able to expand into the world again. So inner world, outer world, it'll go from going into the inner world. The deeper dream is going into the inner world for a higher operating system. And once that higher operating system is established, the impulse, the spanda, the nature of pulsation will all of a sudden give you the next big idea. Okay. Wow, I just said a lot. I love that line, culturally conditioned goal. So as you approach your specific goal, even if it's a culturally conditioned goal, that learning that you do along the way transforms you, and it transforms the nature of your goal. That's a good one, isn't it? I'm going to just cut and paste that right into the chat here. I've had so many culturally conditioned goals. I know I'm on the right track with a goal when like I go and do it and people are like, what the fuck are you doing? And I'm like, oh, I must be on the right track. Especially when like a lot of people who have culturally conditioned me are just like, what are you doing? And I'm like, oh, this one's not coming from there. Right? That's not in alignment with that culture. Okay. Is this really coming from within? What I like about this line from Peterson is that to some degree, I think what he's saying there is like you also don't really have to overthink it, because today our goal is to figure out our true target, and then what might happen is by tomorrow morning, a lot may have been processed. So it's less about getting it right the first time and more about being in process with this conversation, so that by the end of the day tomorrow, we have a plan that is to a target that is hopefully a lot less culturally conditioned, and much more, we'll go with the lovely new age overly used word, is much more authentic, is much more, and in authentic, I mean unique to you, that your one original life. So if in the process of this you get confused or uncentered or feel like we're not getting anywhere, like that's perfect. So let's just say that right now. Like that's good, because that just means like we're probably churning out some conditioning in there, and that's a-okay. If you're someone that normally has a lot of certainty, then I really invite you to have less certainty in the process of this. I speak from experience there. If you're someone that has a lot of uncertainty, I also invite the opposite of like, pay attention to what you're certain of. Trust. All right, there we go. Here we are.